Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming this evening. I'm the pretty one in the middle there, CFO of Ergomed. I've been with the company since January. I have a history in mainly therapeutics in the healthcare industry, both here in the UK and the US. And I was, a long time ago, the CFO of Regis, and before that, the CFO of Shire Pharmaceuticals. And when I was the CFO of Shire, the CEO was Rolf Stahel, who is today the chairman of Ergomed, which is how I connected with the company. The most important gentleman on this slide, however, is Miroslav Radjanovic. He founded Ergomed about 16 years ago as a contract research organization based in Zagreb, Croatia. Later on, he developed a second business called Prime Vigilance, which is in the business of pharmacovigilance, which I'll explain in a minute. He merged those two companies together in 2014 and IPO'd Ergomed PLC on AIM. Also on this chart, we have Andrew Mackey, who's our Chief Business Officer. He was a bench chemist. He's also got a law degree and an MBA. He's been working with Miro for the last 10 years as a consultant and came on board last year. And then lastly, but certainly not least, Neil Clark, who's the CEO of Prime Vigilance. He formerly had my role and has moved full-time into that. Previously, he was the CEO of another biotech company on the UK market. Also on the board, we have Peter George, who you may know of, who's the CEO of Clinigen, and Chris Collins, who's a veteran banker, formerly of Panmure Gordon and Code Securities. So that's the team. So Ergomed is about a £50 million cap company today, a little on the small side, but actually with rather a large footprint. So over its history of 16 years, the company has actually conducted over 300 trials for its customers. We have studied more than 80 products for 100 clients and studied 50,000 or more patients. That is a lot of patients. We have built up over those 16 years a pretty good database and knowledge base and know-how, and I'll explain how we use that going forward for our own benefit. Today we have 350 employees. Unbelievably, we conduct trials this very day in 54 countries around the world. And you can see we've got most of the Northern Hemisphere covered, with a concentration in Europe, as you'd expect, for regulatory and language reasons. And last year we did just over £30 million of revenue. So that kind of scales the company for you. We're a little unusual in that we operate what we call a hybrid business model. And there are several sort of aspects to the hybridism of the model. On one side, we have a services business. On the other side, we have a development or co-development business. And they have very different qualities in terms of both financial and operational metrics. So let me try and explain. On the services side, we have CRO services. This is contract research we do for third parties at full margin. Last year, that was about £22 million of the 30. We do phase 1 through phase 4. So this is the clinical step in the drug development. We don't do preclinical work. And we tend to specialize in oncology, neurology, immunology, and rare diseases. So we don't compete head-to-head all the time with the big boys like Quintiles and Covance and the like. So that's one element of the service business. The second element is this business called pharmacovigilance. A quick word on that. Every drug that makes it to market is required to operate a pharmacovigilance system whereby adverse events are reported to somebody, collated in a database, and then reported to the regulatory agency on an annual basis. You have to do that, which is why when you see on a drug 1,000 side effects, that is the built-up list over time of pharmacovigilance. And then we also have a medical information business. So when you get drugs, there's a phone number on the back, an 0800 number you can phone if you're concerned about the product. We answer the phone and we can help you with that too. And our pharmacovigilance business actually won the Queen's Award for Export in 2014. So we're very proud of that. So these businesses generate profits and cash flow. What we do is we deploy some of that cash flow over here. And let me explain. So Miro and Andrew together invented the co-development model. And this is a really interesting model. We subscribe to the thesis that drug development on a single company basis doesn't work. It is not sustainable unless you are big pharma, where you have so much money available to you that you can place multiple bets on the sort of pharmaceutical development table, if you follow. On a single company basis, the chances of failure developing a single product are as close to one as you don't want to know. So you've either got to be very lucky or very good, and there are very few people around like that. So what we have been trying to do is build a sustainable drug development model, and how we do it is this. We engage with sponsors and we offer to develop their drugs for them, conduct the contract research at a discount. So we sometimes wipe out our entire margin. In recompense for wiping out our margin, we take a 5, sometimes 15%, depends on the deal, carried interest in the product. And that is a carried interest in the ultimate revenue in the product. So if they get a milestone, we get 5 or 15% of it. If the product makes it to market and they get revenues, we get 5 or 15% of those. So what we're doing here is building a pharmaceutical portfolio at no actual cost to us, other than opportunity cost. And then the model was expanded just recently with an acquisition. We were in negotiation with a counterparty for a co-development deal, and frankly, the product looked so damn good we couldn't help ourselves, and we actually bought the whole company with the product. So that was a little shift to the right and an expansion of the model, and I'll tell you a bit more about that in a minute. So that's the hybrid model. So what we're trying to do from a financial perspective here is two things. We have the stable, profitable growth of our services business. Combined, these things are growing at high teens and generating somewhere in the range of 30% EBITDA margin. And that is pretty predictable, and we have pretty good visibility for that because we have some fairly long-term contracts. All well and good. What we have here is the potential for upside. 1, 2, or goodness knows, 3 of those products make it to market in our co-development portfolio. That will add very substantial value, and that's what we're playing for. So the CRO services market overall is a healthy one, $34 billion today, predicted to grow to $59 billion at a 10% CAGR. We're exceeding that growth rate. We're probably in our CRO services business at low teens, and we are up in the 40% growth organic in our pharmacovigilance business. So we're knocking the ball out of the park here. So what do we do in the CRO services business? Well, we have a full suite of services. We've just actually rounded this out with a recent acquisition in data management and biostatistics, which I can tell you about in a second. But all the others we do routinely for all of our clients. The bulk of what we do, however, is project management and monitoring of clinical trials, including the recruitment of patients. And as I said before, we do that across 54 countries today. What makes us a little bit, this is a very complex chart, so I'll just speak. What makes us a little bit different today and how we compete with some of our bigger brothers in the United States, for example, is we have developed a site management organization inside Ergomed. So what that means is we have over 300 nurses dotted around the world in hospitals trained up by Ergomed on how to run specific clinical trials. And we pay them on an as-needed basis on an hourly rate. So we want to run a clinical trial out of Czechoslovakia. We pick a hospital, we pick the nurse, we call her up, we train her on the study, and then she would be based inside the hospital, making sure that study is run properly and efficiently. We get the right patients, we get the right data, the patients stay in the study for as long as they're supposed to stay in the study, and it makes the whole process much more efficient than not having her on board, because the investigator is probably running several trials, and he can't juggle all these balls at the same time. Secondly, we have a group of about 12 study physicians who literally fly around the world talking to investigators on a peer-to-peer basis, helping them with issues, making sure the trials are run more efficiently. And this is a service that we take on our P&L account. We don't bill this out, and therefore we have to run the trials more profitably or more efficiently in order to compete with our peers. So the net result is we think we can enhance recruitment, increase retention of patients, and end up with more evaluable patients, which is what big pharma actually wants at the end of the day. In fact, any pharma wants. So that was CRO services. On the pharmacovigilance side of the house, this I've now dubbed the lipstick chart. It kind of describes the things that we do here. The bulk of which, however, again, is at the top here. Adverse event case processing. So you've been prescribed a drug, you get an adverse event, could be anything, spots, hairs dropped out, ultimately death. gets reported to your physician or to the ER room at the hospital. It will find its way into our system. We will, and this is medically led, medics will review these cases. It gets consolidated into a report and sent to the authorities if it's a very serious event soon, but if it's not so serious, collated and at the end of the year. This is a growing field for small and medium-sized biotech. Obviously, large pharma who have hundreds of products, it's worth them staffing up their own team for pharmacovigilance. But you can imagine with a small pharma company with only 2 or 3 products, it's not worth staffing a team, so you outsource to us. So to give you a sense of this, we have had 34% top-line CAGR since 2011. I just told you it's over 40% now, more than 200 employees supporting 60 customers with products marketed in over 100 countries. We have a strong backlog of contracts, and the Queen's Award I've already talked about. So that was the services side of the business, and I've used up half of my time already. On the co-development side of the business, this is the portfolio that we have today. So what you see here are 5 products with 4 partners in various stages of development. We've got 2 in phase 3, 2 in phase 2, and 1 in phase 1 for a range of indications, and with different size companies. So it doesn't appeal just to small companies, some medium-sized, some big companies. And we will expect data from Internus and Antares on our endometrial cancer program later this year, and we're also expecting data from Ferrer on their insomnia product again later this year. Both of those could be big valuation events for us if they are positive, but as you now know, it's not always positive. So those we have 5 to 15% carried interest in these products. Secrecy, I can't tell you exactly how much of each one, but that gives you a feel. And then we just bought this company where we're 100% of 2 products, Peprostat and ReadyFlow, and I'm going to talk to you about those in a little detail in a second. So our process, and this is where our experience of 16 years as a CRO comes into play. We evaluate about 100 products a year. Now, we don't do a lot of evaluation. It's done at a desktop level. We whittle those down to 50, and we have a team of consultants and internal people who review the 50 products. And then we get down to 12, where we get into negotiation and pricing, and we look at IP and legal and regulation, all the rest of it. And our goal is to do 2 deals a year. Last year we did 1. That's how picky we are. So this year we're looking to do 3. So now the 2 products in development where we own 100%. So this is a company called Hemostatics that we bought in May of this year for £8 million total. Of which about 6.2 was stock and 1.8 was cash. There are 2 lead products, Peprostat and ReadyFlow, and they are targeting the surgical bleeding market, which on a global basis is worth about $2.5 billion. So these are relatively small markets by pharmaceutical standards, and these are relatively niche products by pharmaceutical standards, which is why, frankly, we could afford to buy them and why we can afford to develop them. Had they been blockbusters, they'd have been out of our reach. So the 2 products are Peprostat, which is formulated in a liquid format. How that works is you pour Peprostat onto a sponge. The sponge is applied to the wound in surgery. The surgeon will hold the sponge with the Peprostat on the wound for a period of time until the bleeding stops. The sponge is resorbed into the body. He will sew up the patient. And that works best on flat surfaces. So, for example, a liver resection. The second product, ReadyFlow, I should say this is phase 2B ready. ReadyFlow is preclinical. This will be formulated into a gel that can be squirted through a syringe. So that would work best on uneven surfaces or puncture wounds where you need to squirt into a hole rather than have access to a flat surface. And then actually there is a pipeline of other products that we haven't got time to talk about today. So let's just focus on the 2, if I may. So how are we going to compete? Well, there are products, thankfully, in the market today, otherwise we'll be bleeding to death on the surgical table. And those products work reasonably well, but they all have drawbacks. And so the drawbacks are these. First of all, they're not particularly quick. And of course, every minute in surgery is an expensive minute, particularly in America, where surgery is very expensive. And patients don't want to hang around holding sponges on patients' wounds. They want to get onto the golf course, probably. So our product has been tested in phase 1 in patients, and there's a whole raft of clinical data, and we can stop bleeding on average about 1.4 minutes. So a half to a third of the time of the currently available products. So check one. Believe it or not, this actually is probably going to be the major benefit to our products, and that's convenience. The major product used in this context in America is called thrombin, which is a naturally derived product and extracted from blood, but it is not stable at room temperature. So what that means is it's lyophilized, which means freeze-dried, like freeze-dried coffee, if you can imagine, and then it's frozen. So of course, when you want to use it, patient's bleeding, you've got to thaw it, reconstitute it with saline, blah, blah, blah. All that takes time and effort. So what happens in practice is the product is reconstituted and put on the side in case it's needed. 1 times out of 5 it's needed, 4 times out of 5 it isn't, so it ends up getting thrown away. Our product is to be pulled off the shelf and used immediately. So it has a cost advantage because of its utility, and also it's also ready to use, obviously. Lastly, our product is synthetic, which means it's manufactured in a factory. The other products are human or bovine derived, so there's a theoretical chance anyway of cross-contamination and, about Creutzfeldt, Jakob, etc. And then lastly, because it's synthetic manufacture, the manufacturing process is rather simple compared with extraction from human blood, which makes the process expensive. So we should be able to compete nicely on a sort of head-to-head pricing basis. So the data, I got some preclinical data. So this is a rabbit model, actually. There's a lot of detail here, but what this shows you is that the product is 95% effective and is it's quicker to arrest bleeding than thrombin itself, sponge with saline, which, believe it or not, is what they tend to use in Europe, or Tacocil, one of the more recent products. So Peprostat is phase 2B ready, which means by the end of 2017, we will have proof of concept data, so quick to market, only £5 million. Again, another reason we could afford to take the project on. Phase 3 will be complete sometime in 2019, £10 million. We may choose to license before then, time will tell. And then with the two products together, we've had some external people look at this, and we can see a $300 million plus per annum combined sales for the two products. Now, we probably won't be selling those products. It'll be somebody else. We'll be getting a royalty and upfront milestones. IP is very strong. Composition of matter IP through 2033. Okay, I'm going to speed up now. So 2015 and halfway through this year has been pretty busy for us. I'm not going to say anything about hemostatics acquisition I just mentioned. We acquired 2 CRO-based businesses in Germany earlier this month, and Prime Vigilance, pharmacovigilance company, just opened up an office in Boston. We announced that Monday last week. So revenue for the year, 27% up on prior year, 30 million. EBITDA, 22% up, 3.4 million. This is the most important thing on this slide. So at January 1, we had a contracted backlog of £59 million, which means we had contracts with customers, either CRO or PV, for £59 million worth of business. Some of that lands in 2016, some in 17, some in 18, some in 19, you get the idea. But what that actually means for 2016, 85% of our internal projected revenue was already contracted on January the 1st, which is, as a CFO, that's a fantastic position to be in. So, we got very good forward revenue visibility. So Newsflow, I've already talked about these things. These things already happened in the first half of 2016. The second half, as I mentioned before, we got AZ data, phase 3 data. So we could expect a licensing deal, I think, or maybe they'll choose to market themselves. But we'll expect something positive or negative in the second half of this year. And then we got phase 2 data from Ferrer also coming. In 2017, at the end of the year, we'll have hemostatics, Peprostat phase 2B results. We own 100% of this, don't forget. And then Dilaforet, we're also expecting phase 2 results there, and then more results in 2018. And I can tell you we have a pretty healthy acquisition pipeline. We've already done 3 this year. I think you can probably expect to see more in the coming months. So let me summarize in the last minute. Again, back to the hybrid model. So we've got CRO services. We've got, it says single digit, it's high single digit growth trajectory here, 25% EBITDA margins. We trade at 15 times EBITDA today, actually a little less now, but there's an opportunity for a roll-up acquisition model here because we can buy these businesses at 8 to 10 times. So that's why we're on the acquisition trail. Pharmacovigilance, This is growing, it's actually low 40s, you said mid-30s here, but it's low 40s growth trajectory. This thing has a 25-30% EBITDA margin, and again, more acquisition opportunities there. So this will always be EBITDA positive and cash generative. With no acquisitions, we think this side of the business will treble the value of the company alone in 5 years. If you just sort of do the math and roll out the growth rates. However, we are deploying some of that cash over here. We get 1, 2, or 3 of these things hit, then you can name your own price. But of course, they may not hit. Notwithstanding all of this, we've made a commitment to our investors that we are going to keep the company overall EBITDA positive. And if you look at the research out there today, before the hemostatics deal, I think they had about 3.5 million EBITDA for this year. It's going to be about 1.5 million of costs. So 2 million pounds of EBITDA this year is what the market is telling us. Thank you.
Questions, anybody? Any questions?
It's a little bit breathless, I'm afraid.
Hold your breath. Gentleman over here.
So I'm actually a medical director who works for a mid-cap pharma. I'm sort of peripherally involved in clinical trials. But I'm interested in your nurse model. So although I acknowledge nurses tend to do all the work, nevertheless the physician is the important guy. So how does it work? Is a nurse employed by your company, or is she in a clinical trial unit somewhere? Or, how does it work?
Right. So often you probably know better than me, often within a clinical development setting in a hospital, there is probably a study nurse who focuses on clinical. That is very typical in the UK and some Western European countries, and very typical in the US. It is very atypical in Central Eastern Europe and the Far East. So what Miro has really done is he copied that model and sort of moved it east. But to answer your question specifically, the nurse is employed by the hospital and with their agreement. So it's all in the open. And we have a consulting agreement with her or him, and we pay them by the hour. And so you're right, the physician is the most important, but they do a lot of work in the background, making so when the physician forgets to fill out page 5 of the CRF, doctor, would you mind, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So it'll be disease area specific, so you need to have one for each disease area, potentially.
So no, we don't do that, actually. We tend to have one per hospital, and we train her, or him, I keep saying I shouldn't say that, him or her on the specific product and they actually would come to the investigators meeting probably. We train them on the specific, not to the depth that you would be, but enough depth they understand what the clinical trial's about.
Okay,
Are you skeptical?
Well, my experience is they tend to be involved in one specific disease area, so rheumatology or oncology. So if you've got a whole list there, oncology, immunology, right, blah, blah. So they wouldn't cross between, generally speaking.
Yeah, I think that's correct in the UK and the US. In Central and Eastern Europe, where we conduct a lot of our trials, they don't have enough capacity to do that, I'm afraid.
Anyone else got any questions? Gentleman just over here.
You spoke of a backlog of 59 million for the ongoing year.
No, so that backlog was as of the 1st of January. So some of it relates to 2016. It's like a tail. Some of 17, 18, 19.
So I was just wondering how firm that is.
Contracted signatures.
Okay.
Signed, wet signatures.
Okay, but no cash received up front?
No.
Okay.
Following on from that, has your business analyst, given us an indication of what your turnover could be this year? You did 30 million last year?
35 is the number.
35. And growing with that 59 pipeline will obviously grow as well year on year going forward.
No other question I'll ask. I always quote the figure, and you alluded to it, of the percentage of drugs which get into phase 1 which succeed is less than 10%. So hence your comment. So with your very fast growing contract business, why on earth bother to take the risk? Because you haven't got that many, you're still, there's a big risk there that none of those will get to market.
Yeah.
Why bother? Just, make the money.
Yeah. So the bottom line was growing at sort of 15 to 20%, and that did not, based on what transpired with our share price in its IPO appeared to excite investors. So we sacrificed, it's actually about £3 million of EBITDA in the co-development portfolio. So had we not done any of that, our EBITDA would be 6.5, not 3.5 kind of thing. The hemostatics thing was a little bit of a one-off. So as the diligence team at the bottom of that funnel were doing the work, the main guy says, my God, this thing works because it stops bleeding, and you can see that in multiple animal models, and we've seen it in real-life patients. Obviously, you can't do healthy volunteers for this type of product in phase 1. So we've actually got, so although I agree with you, it is phase 1, it's kind of more, there's more evidence around it than you would typically see, I would submit, in a phase 1. And it's relatively quick and relatively cheap. So we have rolled the dice a little bit, but we think for a lot of upside. Please.
Just as an outsider, what is have you looked into the blood clotting of this? Is it clear that it doesn't cause blood clots?
Yeah, so it's not injected into the vascular system at all. It's used on a planar surface. So they've radio labeled, getting a little bit outside my expertise, but they've radio labeled the product, and less than, I think it was 5% gets into the system, and there's been no evidence of clotting. It's a very good question, though.
Anybody else? On your developments, you've got some going to phase 3, which is quite a long way into the cycle.
2 in phase 3, yes.
Yeah. Normally at that point, those other co-developers will be thinking about either selling or fully partnering. Can you say are they fairly advanced in those sort of discussions, or?
So that's one of the issues with co-development. We don't have control over any of those things, when they partner off and for how much and things like this. So we're kind of the tail at the end of the dog, which is why another reason for doing the hemostatics deal as it happened. So both of the products in phase 2 are with American small biotech companies. I think it would be a reasonable expectation to expect them to partner off. But as I say, the data aren't out yet, so they wouldn't partner before the data, and no partner in his right mind would partner before he saw the data, because that's, the second product, the multi-kind product, is not going to read out probably for another 18 months, because there's a long, sadly, you have to wait for the patients to die before you can judge the efficacy of the product.
On those co-developments, do you charge the companies for the work you do, or that's your share, your 5 to 15%
yes.
is
So
your
when we
share
invoice them, we invoice them at full margin, and then we show on the invoice the discount that we're giving them, which can be 30 to 50%, which ideally would cover our costs. On a portfolio basis, it covers our costs. We make a little on some, we may lose a little on others, but on a portfolio basis. So they see what our contribution is to the program.
And hopefully there'll be upside if they do partner or sell.
Yes,
That's going to be
absolutely.
upside for you.
Yeah.
Anybody else got any
If
questions?
either of those are two phase 3s are successful, I think we could expect multi-million-dollar milestones, of which we would get our share.
Again, could that be game-changing the business? You talk about 150 million market cap in 3 years, potentially,
Absolutely,
on the service
yes,
side?
Yes,
Yeah.
we'd get there rather sooner. Touch wood.
Any other questions, anybody? No? Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.